Okay, then. Thanks, thanks, Lucia, and welcome everybody to Ladies at UX Berlin meetup, I think number 42 with Nikki Anderson today. So excited to have Nikki with us today. Also so excited to have so many people join us for this today. Really looking forward to all of your questions, and hopefully you all caught the link before to Slido, which is where you can ask your questions. So please do put as many questions there as you can. First of all, a little bit about Ladies That UX. Maybe we can jump to the next one. So Ladies That UX is not only a Berlin initiative, but it's global. There are over 90 cities, chapters of Ladies at UX in different locations, different cities around the world, and it's been going since 2013. Every city runs slightly different events, and we even have our own conference called Talk UX, but we're all about supporting women within the UX community. We're supporting women and you're supporting each other as well. It's like co-supportive here. Do you want to move on and we can introduce? So this is the Ladies That UX Berlin team. So Stephanie, who can't join us tonight, has been working with Ladies That UX for a long time. And then after that, Lucia and I joined. And then recently we've been joined by Anastasia, who made the beautiful design that you can see on all of our slides this evening, which is new for us. And Deborah has also joined us as well. So feel free to reach out to any of us at any time if there's anything you're interested in, if you want to know more about Ladies at UX, if you want to suggest something to us that we can help you with, just let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We do want to support the community, so we want more speakers, more participants, and we really want to make this something that's useful to you. So do share any topics that are interesting for you. Do share who you would like to have talks from, and we'll see if we can make that happen for you. So far, we've done presentations and workshops and panels. We're thinking about maybe a kind of a different type of talk where we have sort of pros and cons of different technologies coming up. We've done social meetups, but again, if there's anything you would especially like, do let us know. Taking part in Ladies at UX as a speaker or as a kind of collaborator can be a really great way to try out talking about different topics, to try out workshop ideas in a very friendly, supportive environment. So make the most of us, use us, talk to us so we can see how we can help you. And I think we now move on. So we have some events already planned. So we'll just quickly tell you about those, although you can't sign up for them yet. But in July, on the 15th of July, we're going to have a talk by Kim Goodwin, and she's going to be talking about design leadership. But there's no specific topic yet, but she's extremely experienced. She's currently VP of User Experience, very experienced talking about design leadership and working with different companies and different stakeholders. So we're really excited to have this one coming up in July on the 15th. That will be an online talk again, so also open to people not in Berlin. And after that, very much in Berlin, we're going to have a beer garden meetup, to purely social event for the summer to get to know each other and network a little bit, make friends, talk about what's on our mind. The date and location will be confirmed closer to time. And I don't have a slide for this, but I also wanted to mention that Ladies That UX Amsterdam are also doing an online talk this Friday at noon, which is called Designing Your UX Career with Intention. And we will put the link to the LinkedIn page where you can get more information and sign up for that into the chat a little bit later. But yes, they would love it if any of you want to join them as well, meet some other Ladies at UX chapters. And please do connect with us via these various links. We probably share most on LinkedIn at the moment, but obviously Luma is a good place to hear about new events. But we will always post it on LinkedIn, and we hope that reaches as many of you as we possibly can. And now I think we move on to today's main event. So we're very, very excited to have Nikki Anderson with us tonight to give this talk. We are so thrilled that she agreed to talk to us. So Nikki is a very experienced UX researcher. What I especially like about Nikki's work is that it's very realistic. It's full of practical tips that really talk about how things really are out in the world. They're not just tips that you think, yeah, well, how do I make this work? She actually goes into all of that details. So this is something I love. And also she's very funny with her tips. I really love that it's so human, especially the talking about the reviewing the old CVs was an especial favorite of mine because it's very close to my heart. But this I find just very supportive and very relatable, which I really like about it. So you can, if you don't already follow Nikki, do connect with her on the LinkedIn page. From there, you can find out all the many ways you can access her content so that you can subscribe to the newsletter, you can follow her LinkedIn, you can explore her courses, whether it's templates and AI prompts, you can become a community member. There's a lot of content that's accessible to all different people, all different levels of need, I would say. And so her goal is to help UX researchers go from being overlooked to indispensable, which I think is something a lot of us can relate to. And we're just really thrilled that Nikki is with us today to tell us how to translate will give us tips on how to translate our UX work into language that will get us hired. I think, yes, indeed. Let's go.
Yes, let us go. So this is the Slido QR code. We will just go through very short polls, just so we know who we're talking to, and then I will open up the Q&A. You can fill up the questions while Nikki is talking. We will then at the end just go through the questions. Yeah. Okay. Let me just try to share a different screen. All right. Here we go. We should be able to see the Slido, right? Perfect. All right, let's see. We have designers, researchers, a couple of product managers. Interesting. Some people in the other bucket. All right. We have a couple of people that are still missing. I'm going to wait for another minute or two. Yeah, we do these polls now every time just so we understand who our audience is, because last time we had a bit more product managers. We want to try to diversify our audience a little bit and open up our meetings or meetups also to other industries. We want to kind of create a better understanding of how we can work with each other. And I think this is a really good way for us to kind of gauge who we are talking to with each of our meetups. All right. We're going to move on to the next one. So here we would like to know how many years of experience you have in your current job, even if you are not, even if you don't have a job at the moment, but if you're a researcher for how many years, if you've been a designer for how many years, if you have done something else before that, let's not count that for this round here, but it would be great to know who we're talking to. All right, 3 to 5 years, most people. 1 to 2 years, second place. 6 to 10 years, third place. And we have a couple of people who have been here more than 10 years. That's cool. Really exciting. All right. So the third poll is, what is interesting for you today? So we want to know a little bit what you're looking for in the session, and then we can also maybe ask some questions at the end concerning this topic. Maybe just leave like 3 words, not full sentences. Just give us an idea. And I think this should be a word cloud, I think. Tips, great. Practical tips, examples. Portfolio, nice. AI and research. Communication, leadership. Nice. CV. Perfect. Deal with layoffs. Yes, big topic. How to sell my skills. I think this is the perfect meetup for this. Okay, cool. How to stand out, elevator pitch, resume, getting hired. Yeah, I think these are all topics that everybody has on their minds at the moment. Confidence, big topic, yes. Communication, showing impact. Translating research to non-research folk, yeah. Okay, I think that's a good overview what everybody has on their minds. Awesome, thank you so much. I'm going to open the Q&A now, and then I will give it off to Nikki to share her presentation. Thank you, everybody. Oh, I need to stop doing that. How do I stop sharing? Stop share. Here we
I
go.
can try and, yeah, I was
I
going to
got it.
say I can try and share over you, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that's possible these days. Okay, I am just going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. All right. Can I just get a nod if you can see my screen? Yes, amazing. Thank you. Perfect. I got nods and thumbs up and all those fun things. I am just gonna pull over the chat. Just so that I have it up. But yeah, the Slido would be perfect so that we can collate all the questions at the end and I can answer as many as I possibly can. But first off, thank you so much for taking the time and thank you so much for to the ladies at UX team for bringing me in for today's session. I really appreciate it. And Karen, thank you for that fantastic introduction. I'm hoping that I can live up to it in this, this presentation. But yes, today we're going to talk about translating UX work into a particular language that stands out to hiring managers. And I don't really need to say anything because Karen gave a great introduction, but I'm Nikki and I like surfing. I like World of Warcraft. I'm obsessed with Pokemon and Stephen King and gardening outside of all the research things that I tend to do. I am a research consultant, so I do still work in the field with several clients in 2 different ways, which is advisory work, so helping them set up foundations of research and hiring their first researcher, as well as actually doing research. So I am still a user researcher. I have a study starting next week, in fact, and my calendar is chock full. But most importantly for today, we're going to focus on resumes in particular. And the reason that I wanted to focus on resumes, although we are totally open to questions afterwards, but the reason that I wanted to start with resumes is because they are almost the front of line of what people see when you go to apply for jobs. They are one of the first documents that you're going to be sharing with people. And oftentimes, what can happen is if you have a really strong resume, it actually makes it easier to create strong case studies because you have a better idea of what you're trying to say and the impact that you're trying to show within your case study. If you can succinctly say these things in one sentence, I promise you can talk about them for 30 minutes at a time. So that's why I wanted to focus on resumes. But again, if you have any particular questions for case studies, portfolio work, that is something that I'm happy to talk about. So first, we're going to talk about what hiring managers are looking for, and then we're going to talk about creating compelling and impactful resumes. I will be sharing these slides, so don't worry about that. I also just pulled up, based on that word cloud that went up, I pulled up a workbook that I'm creating for a future event that I'm going to be running. And there's something on there in value prop and creating your own unique value proposition. So I can also share that part of the workbook for people who are interested in that and are having some problems with that. So let's dive into resumes. They don't have to suck. Hey, that's the first good news. First good news is that they don't have to suck. They can suck. They can, but they don't have to. I hated writing resumes. I hated sending my resume. I went through when I joined user research, like the UX field back about 11 years ago. And this used to be unheard of. It's not as unheard of now. I applied to like 75, 80 jobs before I actually landed my first user research job. And I just got to the point where I hated resumes. I hated putting them together. I hated updating them. And it was because I didn't feel like I was saying anything meaningful. It felt bland. It felt like, and it didn't feel like, what I did was go to job descriptions and see what job descriptions said and copy and paste that information pretty much into my resume, or kind of like take that information and find a way to put that into my resume. So, on job descriptions, when they say things like lead end-to-end research projects, that is something that would be on my resume. And that is probably one of the worst bullet points that we can put in our resume. And we're going to talk about that later, because I know a lot of people have that bullet point in their resume, and it is okay. It is okay. But the problem with looking at job descriptions and putting those things in your resume is that half of the people who are writing job descriptions don't have any idea what they're writing about. And oftentimes, a lot of these job descriptions are just copied and pasted, and they don't have anything to do with you. And that is why resumes can feel so scary and so bland, because we're not really thinking about what's important and unique about us. We're trying to say these broad strokes things, and that's where we tend to run into trouble. So then what resumes are not. They are not meant to be a list of tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis. You're not really meant to like put in a task list. And I see this happen a lot. And it is okay that it happens. And it's something that I have done as well, where in one bullet point, you manage to almost list all of the tasks that you do as a UXer, right? You're like, okay, well, like I have led research through, all of these different stages. And then I also do prototyping, and I also do personas. And then we also created journey maps, all somehow in one bullet point, which unfortunately is not giving a lot of people, again, anything about you in particular. I also see people using long paragraphs. I personally prefer bullet points because I think it is easier to read. And as a hiring manager and working with a lot of different hiring managers, I know it is a preference. And finally, they're not a place for givens. So if you're a senior user researcher and you tell me in one of your bullet points that you can do research, I've kind of assumed that. I hope that you can do research. So what I don't want you to do is take this beautiful real estate that you have, which is very, very limited, and fill it with things that I already assume that you can do. Rather, I want what is amazing and badass about you. Apologies, I swore. I hope that's okay. I will not swear from here on out. I'm so bad at that. So what resume should be instead full of your unique and interesting accomplishments. And if you're sitting there and saying, I have none, I promise you have some. I promise, because if I have some, you have some. So I promise that. Achievements that show the consequences and impact of your work, and we're going to break down exactly what that means, and then demonstrating the value you can bring to an organization. So when you say something like, I've led end-to-end research projects, as a hiring manager, I read that and I say, that's great, but I don't know what that means about what specific skills you can bring to our organization. So it's getting into that exact value that you can bring. Mythbusters really quickly before we dive into more about what hiring managers are looking for, and then actual examples of what what would be ideal for you to be putting into your resume. So it doesn't have to be one page. If you are stressed about one page, just stop thinking about one page, make it 2 pages. I mean, try not to go to 3. That generally means that we're putting a lot of stuff in there, unless you have a whole lot of relevant experience. But usually, what you do want to do is look at the job description and say, oh, well, this is a qualitative user research role, or this is a mixed methods role, or this is whatever kind of role, and cater your bullet points to that particular role. So, a mistake I really often made when I was earlier on in my career is applying to mixed methods researcher roles with all qualitative research bullet points. Not really gonna work. So what I recommend doing is, no, it doesn't have to be one page, but make sure you're really catering those bullet points to that job role in particular. And I often say anywhere from 3 to 5 bullet points per your role. So that's something that I tend to recommend. If you have to go to 7, you can, but they must be phenomenal. So put a limited amount of skills that are honestly unique. So we have that skills section in honestly, I just nix the skills section completely. I tell people not to even put like here are my skills section, because usually it's like, I can do research. And it's like, yes, we know, we don't need that. What we do want to do is, instead of in your skills section listing all of the amazing skills that you have, such as workshop facilitation or generative research, you want to demonstrate those in those bullet points, so that almost like the skills section isn't necessary. Sad fact, hiring managers look at resumes for like 30 to 60 seconds to get a first impression. And then we are usually putting you in harshly one of 2 piles, a yes and a no. It's very rare that we go maybe. Third, it doesn't have to be beautiful. I'm not a designer. We were just joking earlier that if I was a designer, you could see my brand while I'm standing up. But hey, guess what? You can't, because my head's in the way. This book, didn't design it, wrote it, didn't design it, right? So if you're struggling with design, first make it as simple as humanly possible. Those are better. If you're struggling with design, go on Etsy or go on Canva. Etsy has some great templates that are relatively cheap that you can buy, as well as Canva. You can kind of stylize something, but keep it as simple as possible. So let's get into what hiring managers are really wanting from your resume. And I was a hiring manager throughout a few different companies. So smaller companies, larger companies, B2B companies, B2C companies. And now I help like many different companies with hiring support. So I see a lot of resumes come through the door. And I was very lucky to have that experience, because it helps me now understand what hiring managers are actually looking for. We want examples of your work, tangible examples of the impact your work has had at an organization, which is why blanket broad statements don't generally work, because they tell me nothing about you, right? So again, unique examples of your work. Leading user research is not a particularly unique example, because I can tell you that every single resume that I will look at, probably the people have led user research at an organization. Another thing is understanding if you've collaborated with others and what that impact was. So bringing in a sense of collaboration, because that's what we want to see, is like, how do you move through an organization with the different departments and the different people? And essentially, we want a concise overview of what you have accomplished in your career so far. So we're asking for quite a lot. I do recognize that, and I do realize that, but we're going to break down what each of these things mean and how to really bring them forward in your resume. And I promise that I am going to adhere to what Karen had said about really practical tips, because I am going to literally be giving you formulas. And again, we're going to be sharing these slides, so you will have all those formulas to use. So what we want versus what it actually means. For impact, use numbers. Wherever you can use numbers, do it, right? So how many interviews did you run? How long did something take? What percentage did something change? And we're going to talk a little bit about how you don't have to know the conversion rate percentage of a product. There are a lot of other ways that we can talk about research outside of product metrics, but all of these things, wherever there's a possibility for you to put in a number, throw it in there. And if you feel like you have too many numbers, that's great. and you can take some out, but throw in a number wherever you can. Okay. Answer the so what. This is one of the hardest things to do. But as UXers, we are used to asking usually why a lot of times because we want to get to the core of something. We want to get to the point. Like, what is the point of what you're saying? If a user comes to you and says that I'm really dissatisfied with your product, usually what we're not going to do is say, oh, great. Okay, let me just take that and go. Because if we go back to our product manager and say that, they're going to be like, well, what? Zoom. Well, what is it that they were dissatisfied? Why were they dissatisfied? What were some examples? So this is the same thing for your resume. So if you have very broad statements, ask, so what? So what? So what? What was the consequence? What was the outcome? What was the output that came? And like ask it so many times until you get to that core. And we're gonna again break that down a little bit more. Use specific and concrete examples. No more vague, I did research to improve the product. We're going to get much more specific than that. And then finally, the most frustrating, I am a fiction writer, and the most frustrating advice that I've ever received as a fiction writer, I'm going to now tell you, show, don't tell. So demonstrate what you did rather than telling it. So instead of saying something broad, like I led end-to-end research, we're going to try and showcase that and demonstrate a specific instance of when you demonstrated or of when you led research and it led to something in particular. So we're going to take all that broadness out and try and really get it concrete. And for those of you who might be worried, because this is something that comes across my desk quite a lot of is people who are like, well, if I don't say that I've done these things, will they know? Yes, we will know that you have done these things. I don't expect you because I'm being a mean hiring manager. If you encounter mean hiring managers, just turn the other way and run because that means the rest of the organization probably isn't very nice. But I assume that you are a UXer that has certain skills, but I want really specific stuff. You don't have to give me broad strokes. So again, with this unique side of things, again, I know you can recruit people. I know you can conduct research. I know you can synthesize findings, but what exactly did you do? What is one example? You don't have to tell me how you synthesize findings across 9,000 different interviews. Tell me one finding that made some sort of movement for the organization. Tell me one instance that something happened. Another thing, what are some interesting methods or approaches you took? Did you do something weird? So I have in my resume that I created and ran usability bingo at an organization, and then the impact that had, which was that there was research adoption went up 50% in our organization, and backlogs contained research roadmaps contained like I think it went up to like 30% more research findings than before, right? So that's a kind of weird and different, and it showcases an impact. List out skills or experience that's interesting to you because it will come off as interesting to me. I always say put the stuff in that you want to shout from the rooftops, and then talk about things you're proud of, please. Like talk about the cool things, and this is why we don't need to worry about blanket statements. Talk about those cool moments, those cool instances that happen, like an interesting ideation workshop or creating like a FOMO room where people like have to go in and see what the research is about, right? So really talk about the things, the instances that you're super proud of. So we're going to pick apart one of my old resumes because I have to share it no matter what. And then we're going to make the shift from little impact and obvious points to demonstrating more compelling and unique impact. This was my resume. Yeah, this was it. Let that sink in. You're okay. You're okay if this was my resume. Because look at these sliders. Yeah, this is also a persona. This is what my first persona looked like, just with persona information. So good thing is that I was a Scrum Master, and it's super awesome that my top tasks were qualitative interviews and usability tests and all of these different, and good thing that my top task was research deliverables, and building prototypes. And ironically, I'm just simply an expert in pretty much everything, which is great. And my skills are just unprecedented. Don't do this. But I applied to jobs with this, so you're going to be okay. Never use sliders. There's no demonstration of my impact. There's a lot of duh information. Well, not even a lot of information. It's unique. I will give it that. It is a unique resume, but it's the wrong kind of unique, the worst kind of unique. No user left behind. Nikki, let's not do that anymore. So don't do this. And if you do, it's okay. We'll change it. And instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at a few different bullet points that I had on some of my old resumes and what they look like, kind of upskilled. So these are also things that I see really commonly in resumes. So I wanted to show some before and afters and even comment on some ways to up level these even more, and we'll get into that. So this is something that comes up, assisted product managers on prioritizing new features and improvements on product roadmaps. Created and leveraged 3 personas. So we have a number here to prioritize the feature roadmap, and empowered, we could put a number here, X amount of product managers and developers to write customer-centric user stories. So I actually missed putting a number here. That's how easy it is to miss these things, right? Collaborated with designers to drive major product iterations through usability testing. Okay, pretty broad, pretty vague. A lot of people do this. Conducted over 75 usability tests, which resulted in actionable insights. I could put in 10 actionable insights, let's say, if I wanted to here. So again, putting in numbers, increasing the SUS, the system usability score, from 46 to 71, and increasing overall task completion by 23%. Super, super, super concrete. Evangelized, which I see a lot, the user's perspective through the creation of user personas, empathy maps, journey maps, and user scenarios. So what I've done is I've shoved everything in here, like all of these deliverables. And so what that does is it gives a hiring manager no understanding of what I actually did with any of these deliverables. So what I did is I picked out one deliverable in particular that was really, really interesting. So used customer journey maps. I could say one or two. I used 2 customer journey maps, so I should have used 2 customer journey maps to inform sales strategy and reduce client implementation timeline of our product by 50% from 6 months to 2 to 3 months. It's a little bit wordy at the end there. I could probably say end at by 50%. Or I could even go, so this is a great exercise. I could say, so what here? And then I could say, which enabled us to onboard X percentage more clients, because our implementation was faster, right? So that's a really great example there of me asking so what on my own bullet point and going a little bit further. And then created and shared insights in creative ways throughout the product team. And again, here we have usability bingo, use creative sharing methodologies such as usability bingo and opening night, which aided in executive buy-in and led to a 20% increase in annual research budget. So we have our number in there. And we're more specific. So educated stakeholders on the value of research. We say this a lot, and democratized usability testing through training. Here we go, developed over 20 user research templates. So there's a number and curriculum to teach over 10 colleagues, another number, how to conduct usability tests, leading to a 60-40 split in evaluative and generative research. So that means that we were able to do more generative research with that. So that's the so what there. Built a research framework and practice for end-to-end research projects. This I see all the time. Created a user research structure and framework which placed user research within an agile environment and reduced wasted development time by 45%. So get to like the most important thing that came out of the bigger thing that you've done. Okay, so we're going to get into some formulas now. And one formula that I'm like literally obsessed with, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of different formulas that we can use. And we can talk as well a little bit if anybody wants to about using things outside of product metrics. But essentially what you're doing is layering with each and every bullet point. What you did, quantifying that, and the so what, or what happened next, the outcome. So oftentimes this formula really, really works and is very, very helpful. So power verb plus what you did plus a quantifier, and those can go anywhere in there, wherever you can put numbers, plus a consequence transition, plus what happened because of that. And this is an example of that, but I'm going to give a few more examples in a second. But this is a really great way, just as like a basic, like look at your bullet points and say, is there something specific that I did that's easily quantifiable that showcases something that happened? So if you're struggling at all, here are some really great power verbs. I know that I get stuck with stuff like this where suddenly I'm leading everything or developing everything. So these are some really great power verbs to start off with, and these are really great consequence transitions. So having a consequence transition in your bullet point almost forces you to create a consequence, because we wouldn't put in a consequence unless there's something that we're going to talk about, a consequence transition, unless there's something we're going to talk about. So those more broad statements like led end-to-end research across the organization, those don't have consequence transitions because we're not talking about a particular consequence. So if you're seeing these bullet points that you have without these consequence transitions, that usually means, okay, we need to like talk about something that we actually did, the actual outcome. And so these are some steps that I go through for each and every kind of resume redo. I don't do it as much as I should anymore, but I used to update my resume once a month because I got laid off really, really unexpectedly once, and it shattered everything, and I immediately forgot everything that I did at that organization. So I try to update my resume like every month or every 2 months, and I recommend doing it, and it gets easier and easier the more you feel less upset about it when you have like actual models to work with. And I would say it's a lot easier to update a resume when you're like in a better, more secure place than after you've been laid off, for instance. So these are the steps that I go through, looking at job descriptions and pulling these skills or keywords for, this is only for jobs that you want. So making sure that if it's like a mixed methods role, focus on mixed methods bullet points. List all the accomplishments you've achieved generally. Just don't put any formatting in. Just list all your stuff, like word vomit, essentially. Add numbers and answer the so what for every bullet point. If you can't do this, move it to the end of the list of stuff that you have done. And then you're going to pick your most impactful bullet points. And then match up your top bullet points with the job description to make sure that you pick the ones that best resonate. So I did not do this well when I was picking all qualitative based resume bullets for a mixed methods job, or like vice versa. So let's look at a few more formulas, and then we're going to hop into questions because I know we don't have too much time left, and I want to make sure I get to all of your questions. So what I recommend doing is, when you get off this call or later on in the week or even the weekend or next week, what did you do that made a difference last quarter? List any of your project tasks or outcomes, big or small, that moved the needle, and then start to use these different these different formulas to put that work into these kinds of statements that force you to think about consequences. So verb plus what you did plus quantifier, and then we have this transition and the measurable impact. So ran 4 onboarding interviews with new clients, which resulted in redesigned setup steps and a 25% drop off in support tickets. So I'm not going to go through all of these because you're going to have access to them, but this is something that's quite interesting. So facilitated a quarterly review across product and ops, resulting in better prioritization and fewer miscommunications. You will see that there is absolutely no numbers in there. So if you are really struggling to find numbers, it is okay. And if you don't have access to product metrics and that kind of like measurement, you can still talk about really, really cool stuff that you have done. So I do want to really highlight that. Additional examples here. So as I said, I'm giving you all the examples that I could possibly have for you to kind of use and help you with brainstorming these. One of these like facilitated weekly cross-functional syncs across design and ops to align on support triage, resulting in 30% faster escalation resolution. That has nothing to do with product. And there are a lot of things that you can also talk about that have to do more with internal things moving than with external product metrics. So think about all of the things that you do within your workflow and how has a particular study optimized those. So I talk a lot about things like we were able to get faster recruitment. We were able to talk to a more diverse set of people. We were able to try out a few different new workshop methodologies. We were able to get insights to stakeholders, 15% faster than we had before. And then something like if you send out stakeholder satisfaction surveys, which I highly recommend doing, saying, oh, our stakeholder satisfaction raised by 25%, right? Or stakeholders used insights in 3 of their user stories. So you don't have to worry if you're really struggling on coming up with or measuring, because I know not everybody has access to these things, product metrics. It is okay, and you can talk about still, I promise you, you have done a lot of wonderful things internally as well. Right. And you can talk about trying new tools, new research tools. You can talk about making ops, just research ops more efficient and more effective generally. So there are plenty of things you can do to talk about that have gotten better as you have done work before. So I do really recommend thinking and getting creative. It's something that I had to do because after my first especially role in research, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know anything about the product metrics, right? So I had to talk more about how I set up foundations at an organization, which allowed us to do research 20% faster than we used to do, right? So there's so many things that we do as UXers, like don't sell yourself short for just talking about product metrics, because yes, they're interesting and they are definitely more relevant if you're in the B2C world, because I've worked in B2B and I couldn't have pulled many product metrics for you because it moves pretty slowly. But one thing that I also talk about is like I worked with the sales department and I reviewed their sales calls and helped them with creating a new script that talked about the top 3 pain points that users were actually feeling, right? Same with like marketing. How did you work with the marketing department? How did you work with customer support? So many different ways to talk about our impact outside of conversion rate. So that was like a crash course, I know, and I hope that there was a lot of stuff in there that felt relevant and helpful. What I am going to do now, let's open it up for questions so that we have plenty of time to get to things that you actually care about. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing if that's okay. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen again so we can look at the Slido. I want everybody also to add your questions in there. You have the QR code on the top left. While we are collecting the questions, I do have one question for you. We know that there are like ATS thingies for hiring, people. What is your experience with that, and how much do companies rely on the ATS system?
It depends on the company. I feel like quite a few companies have used or been using it a lot, especially because it tends to be an oversaturation of applications now. I would just say this is where like the simplicity and language in your resume is really important. So being able to showcase that impact, because ATS software is looking for certain kinds of statements and certain kinds of phrases and certain kinds of words that align with the job description. So where it's not great to copy and paste a job description, right? Because it doesn't really showcase anything. And if your resume gets to a pair of real eyes, it won't show anything unique about you, but making sure that you still are creating or utilizing bullet points that are still relevant for that job is really important. I personally have not worked in an organization or helped an organization that's like really using ATS software, which is really nice. But like people literally hire me to come in for hiring support. So that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yeah.
But I would just make sure to like research just the software and what the software is looking for and make sure that your resume is simple, easy to scan and read and kind of go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one issue that a lot of people are facing at the moment is they didn't think about the resumes during the work and then they got laid
Yeah.
off and they're missing
Yeah.
all the metrics, right? Do
Yes.
you have any pointers how you can work with that? Do you just imagine numbers now or try to remember like what do you do, you know?
Yeah. So if you have any sort of indicators to those metrics, or if you have somebody who's still working in the organization who could help you with getting that information, that would be ideal. But this is when you then need to kind of fall back on those other things that you have changed in an organization. And I would say like for anybody who's going to or wanting to start doing this from here on out, one of the most effective ways to do that is to set up at the beginning of a project your befores and afters.
Mhm.
So if you know that recruitment usually takes 2 weeks, but you've happened to be able to do something where you set up some sort of new tool or did something like some sort of like amazing screener survey work where you're able to actually reduce that time by like 25%, you need to know that your before was 2 weeks and
Mhm.
that your after is like a week and a half, right? So I would say first things first, from here on out, like think about the different things and how much time things usually are taking you and compare those after the things are done. So that's one thing to really start doing because any resume, any case study is all about the before and after.
Mhm.
Literally, that's anything. That's anything in life. Like any project is about the before and the after. And if you're not sure what the before is, it's really hard to say what the after is.
Yeah.
So make sure that that's set up. But if you are struggling because you got laid off and you lost access, trying to reach out to somebody, giving it a guesstimate, but like a fair guesstimate. Don't make up numbers because that's super unideal.
Yeah.
I have made up numbers. I will admit I made up numbers before and I just looked like an idiot.
Mhm.
It was because it was after my first role and I didn't have access to any of that information and people called me out on it and it was really, really embarrassing. So I would recommend not doing that unless you truly, truly have a strong idea. Third, relying on those like more internal things that you were able to do and move is going to be your best bet. And you can say like, in the interview process, listen, I was laid off and I lost access to all of this stuff, but you know the impact was going to be to do X, Y, and Z.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, thank you. I think the first question that is on the top here probably ties in nicely with this. How could we measure the impact? For example, the one that was measured the waste of development.
Yeah, so this is all about your before and afters. So when I usually when I go into an organization, I have ideas of the different things that I want to improve in that organization. And a lot of that looks at it's actually really lines up with the three cornerstones of usability, which is efficiency, effectiveness, and satisfaction. So I essentially look at the usability of an organization. So I say, where are the inefficiencies in the organization? Where's the ineffectiveness? And where is the dissatisfaction in this organization? And I know that's very broad. So let me give you an example. So ineffectiveness is if customer support is inundated with a lot of tickets that could be solved, right? With some help documentation. That to me, then I say, okay, customer support, I go in and get data where I'm like, because that to me is like, hey, research project, something's not going right here. We need to research this. So I go in and I say, customer support is getting inundated with 150 tickets a day on things that are easily solvable, let's say. And so I will do research. And then at the end, everything that we do is usually something called a lagging indicator. So we need to wait a little bit before we see the numbers come through, which is why metrics generally suck. But like product-based metrics, but like for things like support tickets, you can start to see like a drop off in a while, or in less than a while, like pretty immediately after something is fixed. So what I would recommend doing is thinking about all the things that you want to like make an impact on. So wasted development time, the way that I looked at that is that I went to the dev team and you have to have friends in this. But I went to the dev team and I kind of understood on average how long it took them to do certain things. So to make certain features. And then I looked at features that were not used in our product. And I went and I said, devs have wasted on average this much time creating features that are their usage metrics are so low that they basically aren't being used. So we are prioritizing devs to work on features that aren't being used. Let's prioritize them to work on features that will be used, which is things that will be needed by people or things that are painful for people. Let's solve those. And so then I was able to say, when we started to make that shift, we reduced that wasted development time by focusing on features that then were used rather than features that weren't, and then were eventually like sunsetted and kind of put back. So that's an example of how to do that. But like just like think about like maybe make like a chart of like, okay, where are things inefficient, where are things ineffective, and where are things dissatisfactory? And the dissatisfaction one is really great for internal stuff. So if people are unhappy with like how research reports are done, do some research on that and make your reporting better. And then you can say in your resume that you did that, right? So that's like a really great example of how to do things outside of product, but just like brainstorm those things and say, what is the current state? And then what is the after?
Hmm. Yeah, amazing.
I hope
Okay,
that that's
cool.
helpful.
Yeah. Let's see the next one. Can you share some tips about
Yeah.
using resume for creating a use case or portfolio?
Yeah, so the great thing about being really specific in your bullet points is it helps you realize all of the amazing work that you have done. And usually, what tends to happen is your bullet points aren't in your resume aren't going to be necessarily about like every single project that you have done, but you will see that like maybe two out of like I don't know, five of your bullet points, or maybe three out of five of your bullet points are about one specific project. And you start to say, oh, maybe that's a project that since it's in my resume quite a lot, has had so much impact. That's a project that I'm going to take out and actually talk about because it is really, really meaningful. So that's one thing. And another thing is in case studies, what tends to happen is people don't talk about that after. They don't talk about the thing that like they ended on the outcome. And so by thinking through your resume in this way, and I recommend don't just put like five bullet points per role, like yes on your finalized resume, but have another. I have like a backlog resume where I have all of the stuff that I have done, good, bad, ugly, right? And the good is up top. The bad is kind of like, and this is down here. I could make it work, but maybe not. The ugly is just gone, right? Don't ever talk about that again. But like the good stuff, what is great about it is it's like if you have all of this information, you can bring it out and like talk about the actual impact and the consequences in that case study. So at the end of that case study. So that's something that I would recommend doing is getting really clear on all the work that you did so that you can see the most impactful things that you have done. And usually they're surrounding a few different projects and you can use those to use in your case study because not a lot of people share the impact
Hmm.
um, at the end of their case study presentations. And I really, 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 really recommend doing that.
Hmm. Yeah, I was wondering how you, because you mentioned you tailored the CV to the position.
Mhm.
It seems like a lot of work to do it for every single position, but if you
Oh,
have like
yeah.
a backlog of all the items, then you can just like pick and choose and basically just pull it in, for each of the
Yeah.
positions. Yeah.
I also have a qualitative user researcher resume, a mixed methods
Mhm.
researcher resume. I don't get, why are we celebrating? I don't get asked for my resume as much anymore because consultancy work is a little bit difficult. Difficult. It is difficult, a little bit different. But I do have like a consultancy based resume as well. So it does make it easier when you have all of that information and then resumes that are a little bit more catered.
Yeah.
One thing that I will say is do not go to extreme lengths to cater your resume to every single job you're applying for because you will not survive that. The jobs that like you are like, I really want this, this is really meaningful, do it for those,
Mhm.
not for every single one.
Yeah. Also, many of them are quite similar because I've been looking at the job roles, and if you are specific, like if you're a mixed method researcher and you just want those positions, then it's not going to be that different, So I think it's probably good if you want to go into ops and research, maybe dabble in PMing potentially. Probably then you would have to need different CVs for sure. Yeah, I think that's good feedback. Okay, I think one question here on the top. Oh, it
Hey,
changed. Oh my
yes.
gosh, yes.
Great.
So it still has two ratings, but let's go with the AI one. Which AI skills should a researcher focus on?
I don't know. This is a
Gosh,
really tough question.
yeah.
So it depends. I don't know what AI skills really mean in this context, but one thing that I would recommend play around with tools in the most ethical way possible. So don't put PII data in like personal identifiable information. Please don't put anybody's personal information into AI unless you have internal AI that your legal team has said this is okay to do all of that, which they probably wouldn't do. But play around with AI. The thing is like I use AI in my business, but I am a business person, and that is a very, very different thing. I will sometimes use AI in my research, but I use it more as a thought partner than something to answer my questions because AI is an intern that has no idea what it's doing. And so if you treat it as such, that is going to help you. So for instance, I was running a research study last month, and we had 7,300 responses to a survey. Guess who's not going through that with open-ended text? Guess who's not going through that? Me. I am done with that. And AI helped me quite a lot with that. I checked with the company if they felt if it was okay. I showed them the data that I was going to put in, and I asked the company, "Hey, is it okay if I run this through AI to kind of pull out the major themes that we are seeing and to help us with quantifying this information?" And they said yes, and so I went forth and I did such. So like there aren't any like yes, there are AI skills. Okay, let me do this. AI skills that you should be good at, prompt engineering.
Mhm.
Learn how to prompt AI like an intern and not expecting it to do your work for you and as acting as a thought partner. So I will put in a research plan, let's say, and I will say, what is everything that I'm missing? What is the pushback that I'm going to get? What are the stakeholders going to hate about it? What questions am I going to get on this?
Mhm.
Rip it apart. My favorite thing recently is saying, rip this apart from the point of view of, I do this with proposals, rip this apart from the point of view of like the CEO and the COO and the CPO and like tell me all of the stupid things that they would think when reading this. Like tell me why they wouldn't hire me.
Mhm.
So prompt engineering, but the other side really of it is like using it for things that make sense, which is speeding up as many of our processes as possible with knowing that it's not going to do the job for you. And always check with your legal team.
Yeah. Absolutely. I really like that you use kind of ChatGPT to be like a role-playing partner. They're supposed to be like the CEO and tell you what they hate about your project, whatever. I think that's a really good idea how to check your own quality of the work in a way and kind of think about what they might be thinking. I think that's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And it's still the thing is it's still an echo chamber, so it still
Yeah.
messes that stuff up. So
So
if it can't even be like a role play thought partner, it's not going to be a good researcher.
it's true.
So I would just get really good at like prompt engineering and using it for what it is and play around with as many tools as you can to see what they can and can't do.
Mhm. Okay, cool. So here we come to the seniors. What are your
Yay.
tips for someone with 10 plus years experience? How do we communicate the more strategic types of work in two leadership roles. No, strategic types of parts of the leadership roles. Here we go.
Yeah. So this is more complicated. And what I would do, so if I were applying for a full-time role today, or if a consultancy asked me for a resume, the things that I would put in it are any sort of like, well, if you're a manager, because you might be 10 plus years as an individual contributor, so I will talk about that in a second. But if you're a manager and you're going for a managerial role, talking about your impact on like team and the organization at like a larger scale. So let me try and think about. So one thing that I would put on my resume is like how many people I have managed and the outcomes. Like I would pick like one like outcome in particular that I have helped the team achieve. Um, oh, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah.
My microphone is very annoying, so I touched it. Like, sorry.
It's fine.
One thing that I helped the research team achieve. So if your research team in particular is struggling with something, let's say buy-in or research adoption, talking about how I have helped the team get to a higher research adoption across the organization. So talking about more like team-based kinds of impact. This could also look at bringing research to different departments in your organization. So how have you socialized or meaningfully brought research to things like sales, to things like marketing, um, or to like executives, and what was the outcome of that in particular? So oh, I'm trying to think of really specific examples that are worded beautifully, but I'm not going to be able to do that. But to the best of my ability, let's say taking research to the exec team to get buy-in, which would enable like an actual budget or an increase in budget for either research tools or for a research practice or for hiring researchers or to start a research team. Um, if you're looking at more strategic, like a larger kind of pieces of work, this is where it can be really difficult. So, one piece of work that I did at like a really big organization, was on bullying. So bullying in social media, and that was like a huge part of the strategy. And it was so hard on I haven't put it on my resume, but it would be very hard for me to put on my resume because I'm like, there's everything is so cool about this. But what I would probably pull out is like, what did this strategic piece of work actually change, right? So the research on bullying led to a global like anti-bullying campaign, which then ended up doing two things, which is reduced bullying by a certain percentage. I don't know off the top of my head across the social media platform. And it allowed us to innovate and create a new feature offering within this social media platform, right? So, like, what I would say is take your really strategic things, but it's the same thing as like, what did they boil down to? Like strategic work is thought of this like really abstract thing, but it has to lead to something. So what was the end result of it? I hope that that helps.
I think so. Yes. Thank you. All right. Let's go with the next one. Do you recommend to include all those backup bullet points on LinkedIn, or
Oh,
should we also be short and sweet on LinkedIn?
short and sweet on LinkedIn. I actually think that your LinkedIn should probably mirror your resume, just because it makes it very easy for people who are looking for you. The thing on LinkedIn is it's not about the bullet points in your experience. It's more about like how you present yourself on essentially a professional social media platform. So if you are posting at all, if you're commenting at all, if you're writing at all, those are the things that people are more looking for, not really at your bullet points, but it should mirror your resume.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've seen a couple of LinkedIn profiles now where they just have the company that they have no bullet points underneath. They're just adding the company. Some have a lot of bullet points with a lot of context. So yeah, I feel like it's changing a little bit as well. Everybody's trying things out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like it's fine for you if you want to like A/B test something like that. It's going to be hard for any attribution necessarily.
Mhm.
But I would do the thing that feels most comfortable for you. For me, that's mirroring what's on my resume because like what am I meaningfully going to put there that's better than my resume?
Mhm.
Hopefully nothing. Um, but but yeah, it's ultimately it's up to you what feels best.
Yeah. I mean, if you have one resume that's more research focused, like qualitative research, and the other one is more quantitative focused, how do you marry kind of those two resumes into one in LinkedIn without it getting like super long?
I would recommend putting on your LinkedIn the role that you actually want to go for because usually you have a preference. Like I have a preference of qualitative user researcher over mixed methods researcher. So I would put that information on first so that if people look there, they see that I'm more ideal for qual roles rather than mixed
Okay.
methods or quant.
Sounds good. All right. I worked as a UX UI consultant for nearly 4 years, and my projects are from A to Z at the moment. This looks all over
Yeah.
the place on my resume. What can I do?
So I worked as a consultant before this moment as well, and I have consultancy gigs on my resume. So what I essentially do is I say like the consultancy name that I'm working under. So at that point, I can't even remember what I think it was like product therapist was my first consultancy name. And under there, I put I worked at HelloFresh, right? So I put HelloFresh under and I said a few bullet points at HelloFresh. And then I said Wiley Online Public Library, and I put a few bullet points over there. I said Facebook, and I'll put a few points under there, right? So what I recommend doing is choosing the clients that are the most important to you that tell like a holistic story and try and think about it as like imagine you worked at a full-time company for 4 years. What would people expect of you to have impacted in those 4 years and try to tell that story in like a variety of clients. So for my Wiley Online Library, I was very qual focused. So my bullet points for that particular client were about qual based research and the impact that I had on there. HelloFresh, we went more mixed methods. And it was very product focused, which was amazing because it's such a product focused company. So I was able to go through like more B2C product based metrics there that showcased more of those mixed methods research. And then for Facebook was also more on the qual side. And then I had a client that I did like primarily surveys for. So I put that in there. So if you could showcase like a range of different a range of different clients that you worked with and projects or bullet points under those clients. It shouldn't be projects. It should be bullet points from the different projects. That would be okay. Just think about like, what do I want to demonstrate that I've really done over these past 4 years and like try and just pick those bullet points like that.
Yeah. I like your how you mentioned it like having like a narrative on the CV, like
Mhm.
what's your story, right? Kind of tell your story and show all your different projects that match that story. I think that's a good kind of framework to work with. Um, all right. What if you want to position yourself as both UXR and product UI designer? Is there a specific strategy to balance both on a resume?
First off, congratulations, because this is not a place that I would ever want to be. I can only do one job at a time. Um, but what I would say is you are always going to go for one position or the other. So put that So let's say that you want to be a user researcher that also does, well, you don't see that as much. So let me flip it. You want to be a product designer that also has user research skills and capabilities. Let's say you have five bullet points to use in that one role, the most recent role. Three to four of them should be about product design. One to two of them should be about research. So that means that you're probably, rather than, how I say 3 to 5 bullet points under each role, you're probably going to be more in the 5 to 7 bullet points under each role because you are including additional skills in the form of a whole nother role. Still try and keep it around 5 or 6. 7 is quite aggressive. But 75% of them should be the role that you're going for because usually it's one or the other, and 25% of your bullet points should be about the other role and other skills that you have to complement that. And then look for jobs that are looking for those like mixed capabilities.
I've seen actually quite a few of those. So I think the person
Unfortunately.
is, you might actually be lucky in being able to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think many of us here are just researchers or designers. So I think that's
Yeah.
kind of a edge case, but super good to see that. Yeah.
Still possible.
It's so
75,
exactly.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Specific advice for content designers, for
Yeah.
example, how to frame research contributions like language comprehension testing and being the seen as soft hard to quantify.
It depends on what kind of language comprehension testing you're doing. I'm not a content designer and I'm not like a great like um, content researcher. I'm not like a UX writer either, but like I have done certain types of content research, so such as things like the highlighter test, right? So what I would say is that if there's again, is there a before to like the language comprehension, and is there an after that you could say? So whenever I've done for help documentation, for instance, I've done a lot of more on the like language comprehension testing, and we got an understanding of what people comprehended before. So how much of the help documentation people were able to comprehend, did the test, made the changes, and then saw an increase in comprehension by X percentage. If you don't have that information, I recommend trying to like again, always thinking about your before when you go into any sort of study, like anything at all. Think about the quantifiable nature of the study and define your before. If you're struggling in other ways, I mean, language comprehension. I mean, you could tie that back to like people being able to complete tasks more efficiently, but that would be, you would have to like run some sort of like task-based usability testing to see if people were actually, in fact, able to do tasks more efficiently. You could also talk about um, any sort of like kind of like movement that you've made. So if you've changed the content on something, like did that change the session duration that people are on the page? Did it change like the number of times, like let's say that you did some content design and that helped like the information architecture, like the navigation, were people like more likely to click on things or go to certain pages? It's a little bit hard because since I'm not a content designer, I don't know all of those kinds of things. But really think about all of your before and afters for things like this and see if you can pull out anything. And I'm sorry I don't have more helpful advice on that one.
I think it's already pretty good. Awesome. Yes. And we have one last one. There's more context in the chat. I'm going to read the whole thing. Is it really helpful, unhelpful to state that you have led research at, say, a large matrix org with XFN partners? I don't know what XFN is. For example, a researcher with primarily agency experience might not be able to say this, and a lot of big orgs are looking for researchers with in-house experience.
Um, for example, a researcher with primary agency experience might not be able to say this, and a lot of big orgs are looking for researchers with in-house experience.
So I think
Uh,
that the question came up in the beginning where you mentioned
yeah.
like led
Don't make broad statements.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now I'm like kicking myself in the foot for saying this. That you have led research at a large matrix org with cross-functional partners. It's not bad or unhelpful to say that. It's just the nature of broad statements means that it's very hard to um, come to a really pointed, concrete action or like outcome or consequence. So if you can start your sentence, your bullet point by saying like, um, led uh, led 20 research projects with a variety of 15 cross-functional partners. The thing is you would then have to say which resulted in, and that's where it's harder because you're coming up with something so broad in the beginning. It's hard to come up with something concrete at the end. So if you say like which resulted in and you have an answer for that, then it's okay. But if you don't have an answer to that, then I would say like what is more specific in that statement of you leading research with cross-functional partners? What's a more specific moment in those projects or across that situation that you could pull out instead? So broad statements make it really hard to get concrete at the end. So pulling out really specific parts of that. So like if you were able to collaborate with like 15 cross-functional partners, which resulted in like more like a 20% efficiency on like making decisions across different departments, sure, but still, I would like to get like a little bit more concrete. So then what did that actually lead to, like in the greater scope of things? So that's an okay thing to say, but make sure that you're getting as specific as possible. And that's why I said like it's not as helpful to go broad.
Okay. We will
If that
ask
helps.
more questions. So if anybody still has a question, write it now and vote for it. I will, pull in two more questions. Yeah, I think this one on the top is probably quite interesting for many people. It's about like how to create your value proposition that you mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have some examples there?
Yeah, I'm gonna send this over with my I'm gonna send it in a doc over with my slides. But I'm just gonna copy and paste this right here. This is like something that I do, and there are a few questions that you can prompt to ask yourself, which will be in the doc. But this is about because a lot of people struggle with like their unique value prop, and this is about helping you with that. So here's like a little template that you have here, and there's some like example value props there. But I will share the entire doc, which has like the prompting brainstorming questions to help you through that.
Okay, cool. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You also have a lot of other like documentations, frameworks, etc. on your website as well, right? So if anybody,
Yeah.
yeah,
Substack is like the place to go if you want
yeah,
all the stuff.
perfect. Yes. I've looked at it a little bit. I was like, this is so much stuff. I don't even know where to start.
I know. It's like it's actually the worst part of it, the design. So
All right, so we have one question popping up. If someone wants to become a freelancer for the first time, what are your tips to find customers?
well, I find customers through word of mouth, which is commonly what you will find. If so, when I first went into freelancing and consultancy, something that I did is I found freelancers and consultants around me. This was back when remote work wasn't as cool. And I volunteered to help them at first for free on the side. And then, actually, most of them didn't accept free work, and most of them paid me rather small, but okay, hourly rate, so that I could learn a little bit about how they worked because there's a lot that goes into freelancing outside of just doing the work. And so that's something that I would recommend is maybe reaching out and seeing if you can help support some freelancers potentially. So I help support it by like taking notes, helping them with synthesis, And then putting together, then eventually like I grew up and I was like more 50-50 on the projects with them. And then I went out and kind of did my own stuff. But networking, unfortunately, I'm an introvert. I hate networking, so I totally get it. But going to meetups, posting on LinkedIn, some interesting ideas. Reaching out to companies who you think could benefit from research, who don't seem to have any researchers. And you could reach out to either product managers or designers at that company, and pitch kind of what you could bring to them. So those are being in like communities like Slack groups. For instance, there's a bunch of different like Slack groups out there where people will share freelance freelance work that they can't take on and are then giving it to others. But really, it's about networking. Find other freelancers around you or in your network and talk to them and ask them. So when I went more into like the advisory side of consultancy work, so helping orgs set up foundations and do hiring support and set up processes, democratization essentially, and training and like all of that stuff. I didn't know how exactly to sell it. I didn't know how to price it. I didn't know those kinds of things. And so I reached out and spoke to for like 30-minute meetings. And I paid people for their time. So you can always offer to do that. Those meetings where I asked them how they did it, essentially. And then I got to know them. And then I said, if you ever have any work, could we go back and forth? Maybe if I ever have any work and I can't take it or it doesn't make sense, we go back and forth. And that's how you start to grow that. But it takes time.
Yeah, takes time.
I remember I was like, I can't wait to be a consultant. And I like quit my job and I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna work for myself. And then it was like crickets. And I was like, um,
What?
how do
Nobody
I do
wants to work
this?
with me? What's
Yeah.
happening?
Hello. Why doesn't everybody know that I'm available?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
also wondering a little bit, I think asking for money for kind of um just assessing if there is opportunity to work together or what to do about it. It's a bit hard when you're like not new to freelancing. So I'm wondering, like for example, company reaches out to you and they're like, we're not sure if we need a researcher full time or just part time
Mhm.
or at all. Like how do you process that info? Like how do you set up the call, the first call? Do you take money for it? Like I'm wondering, how do you get going like with these clients?
Yeah, so if somebody reaches out to me, I will always do a free 30-minute consult call to understand what they are looking for, in which I pretty much interview them, saying like, what is the problem that you're experiencing? Why have you thought about this as a solution? Like, what are the issues that are going on? What are the teams struggling with? Like what made you think that this was a good idea?
Mm,
Right? And what are your outcomes? Like, think about it almost as like a research project. Like, what are your outcomes? What are you looking to get at the end? What is your like the ideal outputs that you would get? What decisions are you trying to make? So, what I try and do is frame again what's there before and what do they feel like they want for their after. That 30-minute call, I will do that for free. I write up a proposal. Um, if there need be, so I did this right now. I did a 30-minute call with somebody. I wrote up a proposal. I am have a meeting with the CEO and COO next week, and I will do that one for free
mm,
because it is a high ticket client.
mm.
Um, and it's a big project. So I will do that one for free. When after you've gotten me for an hour and I have put in about an hour of talking to you, I've sent a proposal, I've answered your questions via email, you get nothing else for free from me.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't do unpaid work
Yeah.
because I have done unpaid work for years and
Yeah.
I just don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Put your boundary, so that's my boundary, for
Mm,
instance. Put your boundary, but don't do unpaid work.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's the push that everybody needs here today. Don't do unpaid work. Also with case studies, sometimes they're like, oh, this is actually work for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Also, you have a lot of paid work that we can buy as well. So, pay everything as well if you can, of course. But
Yeah.
it's super nice that you're giving us your time today, that you're sharing your knowledge and sharing your resources with us. I think this is a moment in our industry right now where we're really looking forward to like finding, I would say, leaders in the community that can help everybody grow. So valuable that we had this session with you today. And I want everybody to give a big applause to
Oh,
Nikki.
thank you.
It's virtual, but you can all applause. Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you, thank you. I appreciate
Um,
it.
yeah.
I will say something really quickly. I know that it's a difficult time, but I promise you that we have seen difficult times in UX before. We've gone through lots of ebbs and flows. It's just like how we used to not have a 24-hour news cycle, so we didn't know everything that was going on. Now we have a 24-hour news cycle in the form of social media and LinkedIn. So whereas a lot of researchers and people got laid off in the past, a lot of times we weren't able to see it in the same way that we do now. So everything is absolutely amplified. But just know that ebbs and flows are very, very normal. And no matter what, like research will stick around, but it will change and evolve. And the best thing that you can do is just like keep changing and evolving with it. Don't try and like fight against reality. That's the Buddhist in me. And just kind of like see the reality and work with it to the best of your ability. But there's always hope.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for those ending thoughts. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Please interact also with everything we share online as well, also with Nikki's content. I think the more people see it, the better. And yeah, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.